Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Adoption Happy Hour, brought to you by NAP. We are the National Association of Adoptees and Parents, where it is our mission to unify the adoption community and elevate our diverse voices by promoting dialogue, understanding, and healing through education, awareness, and connection. I'm Marcie Keithley, your host and board president for this evening, along with Beth helping out in the Zoom room. Jennifer's down here in Louisville, believe it or not, and she's at what we call Bourbon and Beyond. There's a big festival down here, so she's camped out, her and her husband, and some of the grandkids, I think, are even here, her extended family. So she's just right across the river enjoying herself. So she won't be joining us tonight, but it's good to see so many of you here. And some of you haven't, I haven't seen you for a while, so it's good to see some familiar faces back again. So welcome, welcome, welcome. If you haven't already, please feel free to use the chat bar, say hello, where you're from, and we'll go ahead and get started. So many of you already know Ereka. Ereka, where are you?
Hi.
There you are. Hi, welcome. It's good to have you back.
Hello.
Great to have you on tonight. Ereka's been on several times before, and we've invited her back because she has written a book recently, and we wanted to get some updates from her. So Ereka, why don't we just start off? Let's just go right off the bat. I mean, you've been here. Many people know you. You want to go ahead and tell some of the others just a little bit about you and where you are today versus where you were the last time you were on.
Okay. So, everybody, I have post-COVID, I have had to get glasses, and I don't know if everybody has experienced that or you know someone it has, but literally this is what my eyes look like, but like the glare in the light irritates it. So if you can't see my eyes, I'm so sorry. But yes, I am Ereka Howard, and I'm so excited to, just be with you guys, be with my family. I consider all things adoption family. And Marcie, thank you so much for kind of giving me the time to do this. My name is Ereka Howard. I reside in Texas. No, I don't ride a horse. Yes, we do have cars. And no, we don't all say howdy. So that's one of the things that, it's a stereotype about Texas people. So, but yes, I recently wrote a book called Identity Crisis. I'm still working on my doctorate in Counseling Education and Supervision, as well as a life coach and all things Ereka. So yes, that's who I am. And I'm a ball of energy. So I did not bring my calm down bottle, Marcie, but that's okay.
It's over there. It's on the other side of the room, but I have mine.
Yes. So I definitely have a calm down bottle, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But I'm so glad to see everybody. Thank you so much for your support, and thank you for tuning in at Happy Hour and representing NAAP in the house. Can't wait to see you guys. This time last year, we all just came back. Those that attended the conference, we literally all just came back from the conference this time last year. So miss you guys.
Okay.
My Marcie, I think she's frozen.
Yeah, I was frozen for a moment. I'm having so much problem with my internet here lately, but okay. Okay, where'd we leave off?
So I was telling them how awesome you are and how amazing you are, how amazing the team is, how amazing it is to just be a part of this happy hour. Like the first time that we actually decided to do it post-COVID, pre-COVID, everyone was like, how are we going to do this? So I was just telling them how amazing you are. That's all. Giving you your accolades. And I think she froze again. That's okay. But so no worries, but we are going to go right ahead. So yeah, I'm excited to be here and definitely looking forward to everything. Marcie, your makeup looks absolutely amazing, by the way.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. So yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the book. Let's talk about, well, first of all, you you were at our last conference in Indianapolis, and you were on the panel with several others. And that was your first conference that you attended for NAB.
Mhm.
Correct. You had a good time. It was a good conference.
Yeah, we definitely did have a good time.
Okay, and we've known you for several years. Like I said, you've been on before. So the work you've been doing. So tell me how the whole identity crisis started. Did you decide to write the book based on the fact that you went into reunion with your family, what you found out? Tell us that journey of the beginning of the book and why identity crisis.
So originally, I came up with this topic. I came up with identity crisis that was based on an identity crisis, right? When I first decided I was going to name it something like Clever or Meet Ereka or something like that. And then I thought about it. I was like, that wouldn't kind of collide within what I'm going to be talking about in the book. And just to kind of tell you a little bit about me, growing up adopted, a lot of the stuff that's within this book is adoption based. There's actual research that I inputted within this particular book that I did during my master's program, because a lot of my papers were based on adoption. You know, I did a lot of research on what it is that we struggle with, our identity, and, just different things that it's hard for us to maneuver, whether we're in reunification or we've experienced a lot of abuse, neglect, entrepreneurship, addiction. I decided to name it identity crisis because that is a pretty prominent area in my life that I struggle with as an adoptee. Sometimes we don't know who we are because we've had to adapt to environments that we were just forced into, and not just kind of, those that were younger, because I was an infant when I was adopted. So that's kind of where the name identity crisis came from, as well as, growing up and people telling me, you don't know who you are, do you? You don't know who you are. And I'm like, I think I do, but I think I don't. I adapted to the identity of my family, of my adopted family, which was African American. But when I grew up and I hit 18, I then did a lot of investigation on trying to find my biological family, because I knew there was something different about me, that I was not all African American. There's different hair textures, there's different dialects, there's different history, there's a lot of different identity within that particular culture. And so it wasn't until I turned 18 years old and I was like, man, I'm not just all African American. And come to find out, my biological mother is an immigrant from Cuba, first generation from Cuba. So if she didn't come to America, I probably would have been in Cuba right now. So, then my biological father, he's from El Salvador, Mexico. And so, that's an identity crisis. Your whole life, you're growing up telling yourself and knowing, hey, I'm African American. And then it's just kind of like, boom, here it is. So that's the root of really why I decided to name this book Identity Crisis. Because a lot of us adoptees, not only adoptees, but even those outside of adoption, we struggle with knowing who we are, and a lot of issues happen to us, experiences happen to us, which causes us to be in a crisis and not really know who we are. So that's in a nutshell why I decided to kind of like name it Identity Crisis. So.
And would you like to share a little bit about your story, about your journey? Tell us a little bit about that and the reunion and
my journey of being adopted has been one of the hardest, but yet insightful, appreciative experiences that I've ever had. When I was an infant, I found out that my mother had abused heroin and cocaine into the day that I was born. And so I was considered a drug baby per se. And there was a lot of different things that happened to me when I was adopted, just to say the least. I had a very strict family who raised me, and it was either their way or the highway. I really couldn't do a lot of the things that my family, that other kids could do. And so I struggled with my identity, trying to fit in as a teenager. And then I went on to moving out of my parents' home at the age of 18, literally in a police car, because I was tired of the way that I was being treated. I couldn't take anymore. And, since then, life has been a struggle up at least until 25. I'm now in my 30s. And so I have learned to adapt. And in this book, I actually say one woman's story of finding her identity through the struggles of life. So it's one of those things where, my life has been the struggles, turning those struggles into successes. And so that's a little bit about my story and who I am. And then I reunited with my biological family in 2008 with my grandmother. And then after that, went to Cuba. That's a little bit. So, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Cuba, what that was like for you.
Do not eat the food. Cuba. So Cuba is the type, and I'm actually working on another trip in late October, this coming October, to go down there and do some mission work with my family down there and some other churches down there. So I've kind of turned it into like a little ministry, just to kind of give back to the country. But Cuba, the very first time that I went, I ended up taking the same grandmother that came from Cuba during the 80s, and did not go back to the island until, I want to say, 2018. So you imagine 50 something years of not seeing your family. And then the daughter that you brought back from Cuba, my mother, passed away in prison. So I took her back. I got her passport. I got her, her identification. I can't think of the actual word, but it's their card of what they have to have in order to kind of go back. And so her passport and something else, nevertheless, visa. And so we had to get that renewed. It was an experience. It was, Marcie, it was an experience to remember. And I say that because I did not know a lot of Spanish, and the culture there, I did not stay with the tourists. I stayed with my family. I stayed in a hut practically. And so the very first time that I went, me and my grandmother, we went half on a whole entire house right off the Gulf of that connects Miami to Cuba. And I got all my family together. We were all in that same house. I took pictures, almost got bit by a lizard. They thought it was funny. I'm American. I don't think that's funny. But it was right after Hurricane Irma, and it was probably one of the best experiences that I've ever had in my life. Cuba is very culturalistically diverse, but it's also there's really no color. They don't see color. They just see, hey, we're all Cuban. We're all struggling. We're all in a communist country. It's more than just nice cars and and everything that people think. But it was an eye opener. It was, Marcie, it was an eye opener to be able to go and see my family and learn about my culture. So, yeah.
And let's talk about that. So what family members did you meet when you were in Cuba?
I met my aunt. I met my uncle. I met cousins. I met other uncles, cousins. The majority was cousins, aunts, uncles, friends of my mother's. My mother had left the island, I believe, when she was, I want to say 15 years old. No, she was probably around maybe 9 or 10. And at that time when my mother was on the island, she developed friendships. And so I was able to meet those same friends. They knew that my mother had a child. They just didn't know where she was because I had gotten taken away from the state and placed in the child welfare. They knew that it was a baby, but then now this baby is an adult. So, but I really enjoyed meeting a lot of my mom's friends, and they told me a lot about her and what type of personality she had. So I was able to meet everyone, to be honest, not everyone, but the majority of my close family members, and understand why I act like this, what I do, that identity, right?
And what about siblings?
Siblings, I don't have any siblings. I was the only child within my mom's pregnancy. I probably have other siblings on my father's side, but as far as I know, I'm the only child on my maternal side of the family.
I know I watched a couple of the videos and stories that you had up when you were in Cuba. So talk about language barriers. Was there,
Well,
how did you
before I left, I knew that I was going to have these language barriers. So I downloaded a non-internet translation application on my phone. And I would just kind of go in and say, hey, everything, of course it's in my heritage and my genetics that I speak it. But I didn't grow up speaking it. I went to school and in high school and learned it, but it was a challenge. It was a challenge, to be honest with you. There was one night where we had ate some pollo, and that's chicken. Chicken is, pollo is chicken. And, their food is literally on the outside. They sell it. You'll walk by, how we have our stuff protected in, little, cases and stuff. No, you're going to find some beef just laying out on the street, not on the street, but like on a table. They have the little actual huts that they sell it out of. So we went to that particular place. I ate it and I got sick as a dog the very first time. And when I say that I could not communicate with them, it was very, very, very hard for me to communicate with them. I was trying to tell them, mi panza no bien, my stomach is not feeling good. That's what I would tell them, so some of the stuff came easy, but then also it was a real struggle for me to communicate with them and let them know, hey, I don't want to do that. But I had an application that I used. And since then, that was actually maybe 2016 or 17. And now I have adapted so much Spanish. So I sound like one of them if I was to get into the room with a lot of them. But it was a struggle. It was a struggle, but I didn't look at it as a struggle. I was actually very appreciative, Marcie, to be able to communicate with them. And so it was good.
Did you bring pictures with you?
With me right now?
No. I mean, when you went to Cuba, did you bring pictures to share with them? And
yes.
Did you
so
get
I
to
printed out?
Exchange pictures.
Yeah, I printed out a lot of pictures. Like I said, they knew that my mother, when she left the island in 1980, that she had gotten with child. She had a daughter, and then could not take care of that daughter. And so my goal was to, when I was bringing the pictures, was to show them the developmental stages of my life. This is what I did at this time, try to pinpoint and bridge in those gaps to where they were not there to see, what I was in. I played basketball, I played softball, I played soccer, I played football, just try to catch up for old times. And then I also got a picture of my biological mother. So it was pretty awesome.
It was pretty special.
Yeah.
So what was tell us, I mean, I know there was a lot of stories that you could probably tell us about when you were in Cuba. What was your biggest surprise?
I want to say my biggest surprise was, my biggest surprise of Cuba was being able to look, I wouldn't say surprise, but appreciation was going to Cuba and seeing people who look just like me. You know, this is why my eyes look like this. This is why my nose looks like this. You know, ooh, I'm gonna look very nice when I get this age. Or, you know, those type of things where I'm just completely like, you know, I get educated about why I did. But that was a very appreciative moment for me. But it was also very surprising to see how they live. You know, they don't have an AC. You know, they don't really have what we have over here in America. The majority of them walk to where they need to go. The highest paycheck that doctors get is about maybe $40, $45 a month. The currency is different over there. So that was probably one of the most surprising things, just to see in the lifestyle and how they live over there, and why a lot of Cubans decide to come to America and never return back to that island, being in a communist country. That was probably the most surprising thing that I had ever experienced. So that's why I now turn it into a ministry. When I go over there, I send them things.
And how long were you there the first time?
A week. Every time I go for about a week. Working on a month, but now we're working on just a week, for about a week, enough to kind of get the culture and enjoy it and turn my phone off the whole entire time. Literally no communication with nobody, just all Cuba.
Yeah. And what about your family? I mean, how were you received? I mean, how did they receive the information as far as when you went into reunion? And
well, the first time that I went, my grandmother, she was kind of hesitant of sharing what happened to my mother, because you're expecting to bring back your daughter, but then instead you bring back the child that got taken away from the daughter that you brought to America. So they welcomed me with open arms, but letting them know that my mother passed away and that's what caused the separation was really detrimental to them. But they welcomed me with open arms, made sure I was okay, made sure, you know, the norm, you know, it was family. Cubans are very close-knit family. Their religion, you know, some of the homes that they are in right now come from their ancestors, and they stay in those homes where their ancestors are, and then the next generation stays in that home, and then the next generation. So the home that I was in was the same home that my mother grew up in. So
these emotions that you experienced when you were there, like being in the country, knowing that you were from that country, talk about those feelings and how you processed that.
I was scared.
Did you feel connected to the country?
Say it again.
Did you feel connected to the country?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I did, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt very connected to the country. It's like going home and really being able to see where you come from and learning your history and the culture. And the culture is so sweet over there. It's so sweet. I brought back a lot of different things with the Cuban flag on it. I was like, oh, I want to bring that. Oh, I want to bring that. Oh, I want to bring that. Which, as a matter of fact, these are one of the things. So in Cuba, they do a lot of painting, a lot of natural painting. So I brought this bag from there, and this is an actual cloth. This is a cloth. And so I got this from there. And so I got a lot of different things. I also brought back some stuff that I shouldn't have, but I got it over here. I got some Cuban coffee. I got a chance to have some Cuban coffee. The little cups are, you know, they're very small. It just felt really good to be able to be there and just be in the culture and find out my identity. You know, it was very sweet. And then I actually did not want to leave. That whole abandonment thing came on me when we were boarding the plane, because I wanted to bring them back. They don't know a lot about America, and they, you know, when you're forced to live in an environment where you want more out of life and you can't do anything about it, that makes you sad, you know. So leaving the island and coming back and, seeing the fact that now I have to come back to my normal environment, it kind of made me feel some type of way about America, appreciate life for the most part. It made me appreciate life, and what I do have, the fact that I do have a vehicle. It might not be a Jaguar, it might not be a Lexus, but it's a vehicle, because in another country, they don't have that. And they have no choice but to accept what they have. So I was very appreciative of it, Marcie.
When you came to Cuba, did you travel by yourself, or did any of your adoptive family come with you, or?
No, they didn't come with me. I didn't want them to. And they probably did not want to come because they weren't, Cuba, you hear about, a lot of, some people hear that there's a lot of crime, there's a lot of murder. And there is, there very much so is. But they knew I did this for me. And so the first time that I had went, like I said, I went with my grandmother. Second time I went by myself. And then the third time I went by myself. And then this next time that I'm going to go, I will be going by myself unless my grandmother wants to go, and then I'll pay for her flight and make sure that we're okay for her to go, because she definitely does want to go. So, yeah.
And what about your adoptive family, and how did they process reunion and your return to Cuba?
Timing is everything, Marcie. Timing is everything when in this particular area, in adoption, reunification. Timing is everything. If I would have went to Cuba in 2000 and let's say 10 or 11, they wouldn't have been able to handle it because they haven't processed it. And they would feel more with their feelings rather than their faith or fear, that normal fear that a birth parent has about, or that adoptive family has, or they're going to neglect me, they're going to forget everything that they learned. When in all actuality, it's just for that child or that adult to find their identity. So I didn't take them with me, but the way they felt about me going, fast forward, like I said, timing is everything. When I went, it was the perfect time for me to go. There was no regret. There was no bickering. There was no rejection. There was just be safe. Be safe. We know why you're going. We understand. And we know, I assured them prior to leaving, that I loved them. And that I know who my family is. And I also know who my family is. I don't see titles anymore. I see family, so.
And that's something that when I found my nephew, I remember him saying that was one thing that he came up with that he mentioned. And he said that at the end of the day, it's all about family. There's no qualifiers. It's just love. It's just love. We're here. This is family, and it's love. So anyway, when you get back home, now let's talk about the transition from Cuba. You're back home now. You got a lot of questions answered. You had some surprises. Talk about, back in the States and what you brought back with you. And
I brought back some rum.
You brought back some rum.
I'm just being honest. I did. And actually, I have not touched it or drank it or anything like that. But, they hear Cuban rum, Cubans drink a lot of rum, or Cubans drink a lot of coffee. I brought back a lot of things that I keep in my little museum area of Cuba stuff. I brought back a cup that my cousin drank out of. I brought back empty cans of Cuban cola. I brought back just stuff that I can savor and appreciate, and so coming back into the States, that's what I had. It just reminds me of culture, statues, and so forth and so on. So I brought back some things like Cuban cigars. When some of my family members, but I don't smoke. But I brought back I brought some Cuban sugar. I brought some Cuban cocoa. I was going to bring back an avocado, but I wasn't able to because they just would not have allowed that. So, but I wanted to bring back some fruit and, you know, just because the culture, it's so natural. Things are so natural over there. So, yeah, I brought back a lot of stuff.
And so when you came back home and you're sharing your story, your journey with your adoptive family, and how was that received?
With open arms. Like I said,
that's wonderful. Yeah.
Timing is everything, Marcie. Timing is everything. And I say that because there was a time where I wanted my biological mother to be here. And then as I got older, I realized that she wasn't in the position to meet me. And that is okay, because it could have confused a lot of things. And so timing is everything, as well as wanting my biological grandmother to meet my adoptive family. Well, it took them some time and some years to develop that relationship and understanding that she does love us. She's not going to neglect us. Hence, I did move out when I was 18 years old, so I understand why they felt that way. But it was with opening arms, and it freed me from a lot of different things, of worrying about what they're going to think. Are they going to love me? And a way that I got over that was just realizing this is for me. This is for me. This is not for my adopted family. This is not for my biological family. This is not for my friends, but it's for me. And I deserve this. So I started giving that self-gratification about what that is and what that feels like.
Do you have any advice that you would give to a fellow adoptee who maybe is planning on revisiting their homeland, and what to be prepared for? Or
you're never really prepared to meet someone you don't know. I would say enjoy it. Learn as much as you can without the difficult things that you feel or think might happen. But be open. Be open about it. Enjoy it. Learn about who you are. You deserve it. Your identity deserves it. Enjoy it. Now, if you're afraid and you don't have that to happen, timing is everything. Timing is everything.
And back to your book for a few minutes now. Has your adoptive family read your book?
Say that again.
Did your adoptive parents, have they read your book?
My mother has not. My father has not as well. But a lot of family members have, and they know how I was raised, very strict. And they understand some of the things that I have placed in that book. And they also appreciate the success that I have had in order to adapt and transition those things into a positive thing. My mother has not read my book, and I can't wait until she does. Like I said, pushing the book out before I started my doctoral program in the fall, that was the goal. This book was supposed to have already been out 10 years ago. I had just kept on postponing it. And so this, let me see how many pages. This 95-page book just scratches the surface of my story. There's so much more. There's so much more to my story, but I wanted to get it out. And I realized that it has helped a lot of people. There's all kinds of adoption agencies who are asking, hey, can we give this to our birth parents? Can we give this to our foster parents that are getting ready to foster? Let them know how to handle certain things, how to do certain things. But yeah.
And when you were writing your book, I know there were many authors here this evening. So there's always a surprise when you're writing a book. Okay. So What were some of your surprises? Can you name at least one of them that you, or maybe it's something that you discovered about yourself that you really didn't realize?
That I was holding on to someone else's healing.
Tell us about more, a little bit more about that.
Meaning, because I'm so private, in a sense, I grew up being private. You don't let everyone know what happens in this house, stays in this house. It brought me out of my shell to be able to share more about the things that I've been through and how I overcame them. And so the most surprising thing I would say would be hearing people that I did not think that I was making a difference in outside of adoption, people who aren't even adopted, they benefited from this book. All kinds of cultures, all kinds of people. The most recently, I'm not sure if you all are familiar with her, but Tiffany Haddish, she came from foster care. There was a festival for her culture that she is, that she showed up and she made an appearance to. And I went to that event and she was there. And out of nowhere, I was getting a book, The Last Black Unicorn. It's a children's book. And I happened to have one of my books with me. And I told her, I said, I just wrote a book too. And she was like, oh, really? Let me see it. Marcie, talk about blood, like literally your heart pounding and pounding. And so I pulled my book out and I gave her a copy of my book. Tiffany Haddish took home a copy of my book. And so that right there told me, number one, stop holding on to the things that you've been through. You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Appreciate that struggle because other people are going through it, you know? So that was the most surprising thing that I ever had experienced with this particular book. And, you know, like I said, there's other foster care agencies and adoption agencies who are looking to take advantage of this book because there's a lot of research tied into why we respond to certain things, and just talks about getting over those struggles and turning them into a success. So that was probably one of the most surprising things about my book. So yeah.
And how long did it take you to write it?
Like I said, my Marcie, it took me, this book should have been out 10 years ago. But because I was afraid to get it out, I postponed a whole bunch of stuff. So this book was, I had been writing this book since I graduated with my bachelor's back in 2011. And even way before then, when I was in college, I would just kind of go away and write stuff. You know, I still do to this day. I write stuff and I just kind of place it in the book. So it's 10 years, about 10 years.
Okay. And are you speaking about identity crisis?
Yes. So
what type of groups are you speaking to?
So Gladney Center for Adoption, they are an adoption agency that has been around for ages, for decades, for centuries. And they asked me to do a Simpsonism workshop, a 2-part workshop titled Trauma and Identity. And that was before my book was even published that I did that. I did that 2-part series. I did one with the State Department, with the Department of Family and Protective Services of Texas. I did a training with about maybe 70 people, and then Gladney was like almost 300 people. I have done a lot of different speaking events with universities. So it's just a plethora of things that I go and I do and I speak to, but those different agencies would be universities, agencies, nonprofits, campuses, elementaries, so forth and so on. So
as well as personal coaching too, right?
Yes. coach. Yes, I'm also a certified life coach. Is that what you had asked?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm also a certified life coach. Yes.
Okay, let's see what time. We can start to open it up for questions from our attendees here. In just a few minutes, if you have a question for Ereka, you're thinking about one right now, you can go ahead and raise your virtual hand. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going until someone raises their virtual hand. So the book is on Amazon. You want to tell us a little bit about the book, where they can purchase it?
So it is, I'm actually a #1 Amazon bestseller, but that's not where you order the book. You can order it on Amazon. However, if you want an autographed copy, there's actually a Square link that is available on my website. If you all want me to share how to access that. So what you will do is you will go to www.misserekahoward.com, and that's my first and last name. And then you go to the services page. Well, after you go to the services page, you scroll all the way down, and then you click on the link that says order my book here, and you will receive a signed copy of my book. I even put in a little bit of incentives, and I'm actually working on getting t-shirts made too. So don't be surprised if you receive a book and a t-shirt. So there are some benefits of ordering that from my website, but I do prefer that it is ordered that way from my website. And I can put that
put the link in the chat room.
Yes, let me see.
And Sharon's got her hand up. Sharon, do you have a question for Ereka?
Yes. I just wanted to tell her how great it is to see her again since the Indiana conference. But I wanted to tell you that it took me about 10 years to write my book too, from the time I first started until it was published, because it just takes so long to get it all told and everything. But when you first came on, you mentioned your eyes with COVID. And my physical therapist got COVID early on, and she said it was over a year before she could wear her contacts again. So you're the second person I've heard that had the problems with your eyes because of COVID. So just wanted you to know that.
Yes. Yeah, it's been crazy. I have never had to have any glasses my entire life. And now that I've had to have glasses, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going blind.
But your glasses look good too.
Yeah, they are very beneficial. I actually have an appointment tomorrow with my optometrist. And so I have to
they're pretty.
visit with them to see what we can do.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sharon. Anybody else? Lorraine, did you have a question? I know you don't have your virtual hand.
I did, but I can't figure out how to raise my virtual hand on my Chromebook, which is a regular computer. So, hi, Ereka. It's good to see you. We met at the last SNAP conference, and I believe she bought my book and has read my book, and I read your book, and I know what it's like to put it all out there. So, congratulations to you. I'm curious though more about what you're doing now, and you're speaking that that you and Marcie touched on a little bit, but I've been following you a little bit on Facebook and seeing that you're speaking to like foster kids, and who are you speaking, or who is your audience usually when you're talking about your story? Is it adoptees, and how do you find that audience, or is it adoptive parents, or are you speaking to, what kind of groups are you speaking to?
So it will be, let's say if there is a foster care parent program and they're wanting to incorporate the life of an adoptee, they'll bring me on to explain, to talk about my story. And once I talk about my story, it could then go to adoptees. It could be maybe their executive team. It could be their different departments. The opportunities are endless. One way that I was able to do the Gladney Center for Adoption is because I was going to become an employee over there once I obtained my license. And it just so happened to be, they know this person and they know this person. And they said, hey, yes, we absolutely would love them. And just to tell you a little bit, they love to hear success stories of adoptees. They love it. They love that. They love to hear us talk about the success and the struggles. And, you know, so it would just be foster, if all things foster care, all things adoption, all things abuse, trauma, all things mental health as it relates to that. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you, and good luck to you.
Yeah, so just reaching out to those different organizations and letting them know, hey, you know, how can I help you be successful? You know, and it definitely does. When I first did that to an organization, it was uncomfortable because I didn't want them to feel sorry for me, you know. But the way how I deliver it is like, hey, it's okay to be adopted. You know, it's okay to be abused, but it's not. But bringing that light on that thing and knowing that there is a light after the pain and there is power after pain, per se. So.
Thank you. And
You're
good luck.
welcome. I love you.
Love you
Nice
too.
ring.
Girl.
Can't wait to see you again.
Yep, well, I'll be at the NAP. Well, the next year.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lorene. Okay, Jenny, you're next.
Hey, Erica, I'm so glad you got a chance to go to Cuba. I think that's really cool. I've been in reunion for 3 years. There's one question in my mind. I'm wondering, there's a balance, right, between grateful to know and feel that culture, and you're going back, you're so eager to do it again, but there's also that loss. So I wonder how you balance it. I love your upbeatness. I want that too. My situation, I'm very grateful now, still so glad I have the opportunity to meet and know and have brothers now. But that loss, especially after that first meeting 2-3 years ago, was like, whoa, it was a little heavy. So curious what you felt.
I felt abandoned. I felt like I didn't want to leave them. That rejection of not knowing when you're going to see them again. I see my family only maybe one time a year now, if anything. So it is very, very, very hard. But I do, now that Cuba is now, oh Lord, now that they're connected to Facebook and Instagram and everything else, they now know what it is like in America. And so they're not hurting anymore. You know, they're not hurting anymore, but, you know, just leaving them with that emptiness. But one way how I am able to like appreciate it is knowing that I've got somebody out there that really does look like me. Yeah.
That feels good. That feels good to me. I was comparing it like with my birth certificate. Somebody erased my name and my heritage and said, you're a Saint Bernard. Go be a Saint Bernard. And I tried so hard to be a Saint Bernard, but I kept looking at the border collies going, dang, that looks like so much fun. And it turns out I am a border collie. I mean, that's my words for it. But I would think your Cuba feel was like, oh my gosh, I've liked these people. So that is exciting, right?
Yeah, it is. And I do a lot of video chatting with them on WhatsApp and Messenger, Facebook Messenger. You know, there's a group chat that I actually put us all in one group, the family that I'm connected with on Facebook.
Wow.
And so we just, every once in a while, I'll send pictures and they'll respond whenever they can, because the internet is pretty bland over there. It's not as quickly as it is over here just yet. But I stay in contact with them on a day-to-day basis. As a matter of fact, I just had a cousin who was in Cuba the last time that had went. She actually, I don't know how she got here. It's not my business, but she got here and she's in Vegas and she's 20 years old. And
You
so,
want to see her. You want to go be with her, I bet, huh?
oh yeah, that's one of the trips that I'm actually working on as well, to go and see her. But I talked to her, but it's good to know that she is here. So now I've kind of making sure, checking on her, but she's doing very well.
And you can take her under your wing, I bet.
That's exactly what has happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. Elaine, you're next. You take yourself off mute.
Oh, Erica, as I told the chat, your story is incredible and it brings back wonderful memories of I was adopted, a post-World War II adoptee, of going to San Martino, Sulla Marcina, with my birth father and meeting the Italian relatives. And I turned it into The Goodbye Baby 10 years ago,
Wow.
my diary entries. And unlike you, I can never open that door again because my birth father, Giovanni Cecchini, born in Italy, has passed away. And the relatives, they were much more fun than my birth father, who was a grouch, actually. I'd say, buongiorno, buongiorno yourself. He was in poor health. I forgave him, but I did get to go. I went as his escort. I knew that these people who loved their American cousin, they showered me with gifts. They wept when I left. I knew that I would never see them again. I don't speak Italian and no contact, no ties anymore, but I feel so privileged that I met them. And that really did turn me into a writer. I have so much about adoption. This is my third novel, The Hand of Ganesh. Two adoptees bond, and they are each other's families in the book, and they go to India, Arundhati and Clara and so on. So I was given so many blessings by adoption, even though it can also be a curse because I'm never good enough. I'm never the real daughter. But I had wonderful adoptive parents. They're all gone now, but your story is so compelling, and I'm going to order your book. I can't wait.
Oh, thank you. I would definitely love to order yours as well. One thing about us is I love for us to stick together.
Yeah.
Like I'm very overprotective. If someone tells me that they're adopted, I'm like, don't you treat them bad. I don't know. It's just like we stick together. We're like a force to be reckoned with. So
the odd thing, not so odd, but I had to hide the fact that I was adopted because my parents, they were wonderful parents, except they couldn't talk about my adoption. They'd get tears in their eyes, and my mother said, "You're our real daughter." And so I always assumed that there was something, something wrong, and it was all my fault. Either my mother was a monster, or I wasn't good enough, or I was competing with a ghost, and it's haunted me all my life. And at my advanced age, I've overcome it, but I've poured it into my fiction. So for that, I'm grateful. It gives me so much to write about.
yeah.
Great. Thank you, Elaine. Okay, do we have any more questions as we're winding down? Anybody else have a question or a comment they'd like to share?
Hey, Marcie, I actually did want to share something that made me kind of think what she was talking about. So my adopted mother was my abuser. I actually had 3 CPS cases that was filed on me, with the last one being at the age of 17 years old. So I like to say that my struggles started when I was a child. And so, this has been something that I've learned to appreciate, but I kind of grew up with that. A lot of people saw me as that Annie, the child Annie, or Mother Dearest. My mother,
Mommy Dearest, yeah.
I love her to death. As a matter of fact, I talked to her today, but sometimes talking about these things kind of makes me relive it, and I don't want it to come off as though I'm talking bad about her, because I've learned to forgive her and she's learned to forgive me. But true forgiveness lies within yourself before anything else. And so some of those things that I experienced really has developed me into who I am today, and I appreciate them. But yes, I have experience, and those are some of the things that will be in my next book. And I try to write books from a healed place rather than a hurt place. So this book is written from a healed place and not a hurt place. So that would be, so I guess that's some advice too that I would kind of tell somebody, write your book from a healed place, not a hurt place.
It's good. Very good. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Before we go into next week's, oh, there's Peter. Yep, Peter, go ahead.
Peter.
I always jump in at the end. There you go. Oh, look, I related to so much you said. And I want question, I guess, is I went back to Italy, the same as Elaine, and I had wonderful reception from family over there, and I love it. I'm going back. I was supposed to go back when COVID hit, and we'll get there. Just got to save the money up. But in relation to the language barrier, I also had an app, but it was internet based, and in the little village in Calabria, it often dropped out at the worst times. But I found trying to understand the language became so intense mentally that we actually to our families, almost discussed, why did you get a bed and breakfast? You should be staying here with us.
Yeah.
But the bed and breakfast was owned by a distant cousin anyway, who grew up in Canada. And it was great to be able to go back and speak English to someone and, let your mind relax, because trying to hold these conversations and try and understand what was going on around you was quite intense. I don't know if you found that as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's impossible.
Yeah. The language barrier also, it's very, sometimes it irritates me that I can't communicate with my family as much as I'd like to. It is very irritating. But I figured it out, and I try not to get mad at myself, because that's something that I cannot control, and that, I can't hold it against myself. And so what can I do? Learn more, teach myself Spanish. So, but
I feel guilty for not having, I've tried, and I've even got my GPS in Italian. But my elderly auntie there, who I don't know that I'll be able to get back and see her before she dies, but she got quite frustrated with me because she wanted to tell me so much stuff, and all I could understand that she was saying to me was "Nuovo Nipote," new nephew. So it is quite frustrating.
Yeah, very frustrating, especially when they're telling you something that they need help with. So, the beginning was a challenge for me, especially with me and my grandmother, trying to help her get those things that she needs. So,
Thank you, Peter.
thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other last minute questions or comments before we go into closing announcements? Anybody? Sharon, you have another thought?
Yes, and it's not on Ereka, but it's before you go into the thing about the conference next March, which I'm sure you're going to talk about that. I finished Brave New Human